This is a story of death, mystery, twists, and turns. This is Operation X. Our story begins when a school class, or high school specifically, in the year 2023, goes onto an island for survival training. One of these students is Shade. He hasn't told anybody his last name, and he has some problems communicating with others. Well, not really problems, he just chooses not to talk to people. People will assume it's because of his tragic past of his father being killed. But in all fairness, this has nothing to do with it. He just doesn't really like talking to people. But everybody has to make an assumption about something. It's with the notes that on that day, a new student had joined their class. A 15-year-old girl with pink hair had joined the class, named, oddly enough, Emily. Well, that's what she at least told them initially. She didn't reveal it was simply a joke and that her real name was actually Tana. She tried to communicate with Shade, and he just simply told her this. Yeah, I'm not in the mood. And by the way, don't listen to any of the crap the other students tell you. My past has nothing to do with how I act. I just do not like talking to people. She actually understood this, and was able to quickly adapt, and even outright told some people to stop making such assumptions about somebody. Just because they have a tragic past doesn't mean it has anything to do on their behavior. It could very well just be coincidences. It seemed all fine and dandy, but Shade had a natural talent for solving mysteries. He had noticed that some of the teachers had disappeared before the trip, and he knew something was up. He was chilling in his dorm room he had been set up in with his friend Bobby. Bobby was reading an old magazine from the 1990s, specifically the year 1990, talking about the opening of an arcade called Dragon Arcade, which had animatronics, based on a character of a dragon. And we have arcade games, and it lasted up to 2006 when it was closed down due to mysterious circumstances of people going missing, more than likely killed. It seems quite convenient that you just find that random magazine here, conveniently when some of our teachers disappeared, and when that new girl showed up. Don't worry about it. I do worry about it, Bobby, and I'd recommend keeping your distance. Things could get odd. As Tana was walking through the dorms, she heard a noise and went to investigate. An hour later, a loud scream was heard. Everybody went into the room to find that Tana had screamed in terror over finding a dead body. Shade quickly told everybody to be quiet and let him examine what had happened. He took a good look on what he was seeing. The boy's throat was slit. His eyeball was missing, and his other eyeball was hanging out of his head. Blood was coming out of his mouth, nose, eye sockets, and ears. Even some cuts on his forehead and chin. He further investigated the body. There were several stab wounds on his chest, back, arms, and legs. Speaking of his legs, one of his feet were cut off. As he said, well, it's clear that this was no accident. Somebody killed him. Somebody here on this island. My recommendation is we get the hell out of this place. Small problem there, when she said. We may or may not have them cut off all communications so we can go on our own for the next month. Shade sighed and said, of course, you and your stupidity thought that would be a good idea. He quickly looked at his clothes. A light blue school jacket with tan pants, and a white colored shirt that buttoned up underneath the jacket. now covered in the blood from his investigation. He went to go clean it off, telling everybody it's best they all went to bed for the night, and then tomorrow we'd figure out what happens next. It's best to start preparing some letters for parents and to let them know what's been going on, and to and as soon as possible to let the parents of the boy who just died be informed of their child's death. Shade went to bed, being quite suspicious of the fact that Tana had randomly screamed. It was just in there. But he knew better than to question certain things right off the bat. The next day, he would continue to investigate. He would notice an animatronic of some sorts, a unicorn. He noticed it was actually from that Dragon Arcade place. All suddenly, it jumped into one of the classrooms and killed several of the students. But Shade was quick. He grabbed the nearby crowbar and hit the animatronic with it. He noticed that there was a shotgun on display. He knew it was probably not going to work, but he shattered the glass and grabbed it, loaded it up, and little did he know, it would actually work. But he wasn't too surprised. He didn't show any shock. He simply fired the weapon, destroying the animatronic in a few shots. Well, looks like Dragon Arcade has something to do with this after all. He examined the animatronic and found a small note on it saying, saying, details for Operation X. Shade said, if you don't mind, I'm keeping this, for I need to examine it, as he opened the letter and began reading from it. It's on his own. Everyone closing the door behind him, as everyone was in shock. Operation X is a plan, and to upgrade the animatronics of Dragon Arcade with advanced technology, of funding from some government organizations that nobody knows about. But the killer roaming around our building might be a problem. That's what the letter said, and Shade quickly put together that there's more to the story. While looking around at the library that was set up there, all of a sudden, a girl in his class who was known for having psychic abilities suddenly attacked him. He evaded many of the blasts, and he noticed there was a small compartment in the floor of the library, and when he opened it, he discovered a pistol. He used it to fire off several shots, but rather than hurting the girl, he simply disarmed her. But he quickly put together that there's more to what was going on here. She herself was having something messing around over psychic waves. He was quite aware of this, as he had been studying psychic abilities developing throughout the world as of late. After freeing her, she apologized. She stated her name was Ruby, and she apologized for what happened. She was a girl around the same age of Shade, 16. Purple hair, with a sleeveless yellow tank top and blue jeans. Shade, quite confused on why she wasn't in any school clothing, and questioned her about it, and then she pointed out that nobody was wearing school clothing, and Shade was the only one who actually was wearing some. Well, I guess you can't exactly blame me, considering the fact it's supposed to be a school trip. She laughed, thinking he was right, and thanked him for freeing her. Meanwhile, Tana walked in, having heard about the commotion. A day had passed since that psychic encounter, and now Ruby and Shade were communicating a bit. Bobby teased him about it a bit, but Shade did not care. Shade left for about an hour, only to come back to his room to find Bobby with a rope around his neck, with a note saying, drop the investigation, or this will happen to more of the people around you. Shade quickly informed other students and brought him in for a further investigation. As he said, it's clear there's more going on in this island than we think. It's time for the investigations to begin. That will close the first chapter of this 10-episode story. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode of Operation X.